Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us this evening. My name is Dave Javid with Plan to Place. I'm part of the Raymond Associates consultant team, helping navigate here tonight. We're here tonight, our third of fourth meetings on area meetings, as we're calling them, on different quadrants throughout the city. Tonight is on the southwest quadrant, and we're really excited to share with you some information, and then most importantly, get into small groups and hear from you all. As we traditionally do, we do have Spanish live interpretation available. So before we get started, I'm going to ask Gustavo to go ahead and read this message, and then we're going to go ahead and open up the Spanish channel.
La interpretación en simultáneo para esta reunión se dará en español. En la opción de abajo simplemente tiene que hacer clic en la sección donde dice Interpretation en su barra de herramientas para acceder al idioma deseado. All right, you're good. We're good.
Excellent. Thank you, Gustavo. And with that, we have that channel open. I'm going to wait just 1 second to make sure Michelle's able to record that. Okay, on we go. So real quickly, I'm sure, again, you all are probably Zoom experts at this point, but just in case, just to kind of give you some logistics for tonight, obviously you could either dial in from your phone and or your device. We have muted all mics just to make sure that no one accidentally speaks over each other, but when we move into the small groups, we'll go ahead and unmute folks so everyone can contribute. We do also have closed captioning available if you'd like to access that. And then when we're in the small groups, we're going to use the raise hand feature. And for those who haven't had a chance to use it before, it's in the bottom toolbar. If you click reactions, that'll bring up a bunch of different options. If you choose raise hand, that'll put the raise hand up next to your name. And then your meeting facilitator or group facilitator will know to call your name, and you'll have a chance to contribute. We are also going to be doing some live polls. We'll actually start with a live poll here shortly. Excuse me, I just got a message here. Sorry about that. We will be doing a live poll to kick this off, really to kind of get a better understanding of who's in the room with us, and also to get an understanding of meetings that you might have been to and more information about this meeting as well and where you live, all that fun stuff. We'll do that interactively to start the meeting. Then, as I mentioned before, we're going to go into breakout discussion, and then there'll be plenty of opportunity after this meeting as well to get involved, including a workshop on the 29th. And lastly, all the information from this meeting and previous meetings will all be on the project website at www.planpetaluma.org. So definitely recommend you go in there. And one other bit of information is we do have chat available. If you did have any questions or comments throughout the meeting, feel free to put them in chat. We're going to use chat mainly when we get into the small groups as well as a way to gather information. So just want to put that out there for you as well as an option. And lastly, if you do have any technical difficulties, these are the folks to reach out to. Paul at plantoplace.com can help you out. Those that are listening along in Spanish, it's Gustavo Alonso Sanchez at gmail.com to get those questions answered. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Christina Paul to get us started.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm looking at the number of participants right now, and there are 100 people on this call. So truly, thank you all for being here and being ready to give us your feedback. I am going to do some brief introductions of the folks who are here. So I'm Christina Paul. I'm a principal planner with the city and also the general plan project manager. We are joined by Heather Hines, who is our community development director. And then also from the city, we have Ingrid Alverde, who is in charge of IT and communications and all sorts of things. From our consultant team, we have another great group of folks. We have Dave Javid, who introduced himself, who is helping to facilitate this meeting with Plan to Place, and Paul Kronzer, also from Plan to Place. With Raymond Associates, we have Ron Whitmore, who is our general plan project manager, Lillian Mensa, and Michelle Hernandez. So that is the team that is going to be leading you through this, with extra thanks to Gustavo Sanchez, who is reminding me while I say his name to speak more slowly. So thank you, Gustavo, for helping provide our live interpretation. All right, so with that, we know a lot of folks are eager to get started. We also want to recognize that we have 100 people here, and not everybody gets to come or is inclined to come to all these meetings. So we are going to be going through all of our contextualization so that everybody's starting with that same information. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ron to get us started.
Actually, I'll take this back real quick to do an agenda overview. And I just want to note I recognize a lot of faces here today, and the upfront information that you're going to see is fairly similar to what you've seen in other meetings, just to kind of get everyone the information they need to be able to contribute. So bear with us. But just quickly, the purpose of this meeting tonight is to give you an overview of the general plan, what the process entails, what the general plan actually is, what it does and doesn't do, just to give you some background there. Highlights of what we've done thus far, including meetings with the General Plan Advisory Committee and other technical analyses that have been done. But most importantly, we want to brainstorm with you all on the unique qualities of this Southwest area to really understand what some of the assets are, what some of the issues are, and then really hone in on locations, specific locations in the area that you'd like to either see change or you really like to stay the same. And that'll be part of the small group discussion. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to start with a quick poll, do that overview, talk a little bit about some of the themes that we've heard thus far. Then we'll go ahead and break out in those small groups, which will be the majority of the time that we'll have together tonight. And with this large attendance, we'll make sure that we leave plenty of room for you all to give feedback. And then we'll get back together and do a quick report out so you can hear what others suggested in their groups. And then we'll talk a little bit about next steps and wrap up and hopefully get you out of here close to 8. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing real quick here so I can bring up this live poll. Oops, actually, I probably shouldn't have stopped sharing quite yet. Let me tell you exactly how this polling is going to work. So we're going to be doing this poll through Menti, which is a service that allows us to do something a little bit more interactive. So what I'm going to ask you all to do is if you could dial in to menti.com, that's MENTI.com. And once you're there, you're going to punch in this code. It's 9681040. And the survey actually might not be up quite yet. I'm going to go over to that screen and bring it up here shortly. But this information will also be on the next screen that I bring up, and then we'll kind of launch right in the poll. So again, if you want to bring it up on your cell phone, that's great. If not, a second window will work as well. So with that, I'm going to now stop sharing and bring up the poll here real quick. Thanks for your patience. All right. Oh, it looks like we already have some early birds jumping in there. That's fantastic. So I'm going to share my screen again here. And for those that have already jumped in, great. So what we typically like to do is do a quick icebreaker, and icebreakers and ice cream are my favorite. So I'm asking you what your favorite flavor of ice cream is, just to get the ball rolling here. And we do have, again, quite a few people that have dialed in. So we'll move through this as quickly as we can to leave plenty of time for the exercise we're going to do together here shortly. But I'm going to give this maybe 10 more seconds. Obviously, this question isn't as important as the others. Okay, so it looks like a lot of people like salted caramel and mint chip. Excellent. We'll dive into that a little bit deeper in the small groups as well. All right, so now we're going to ask a series of demographic questions, and we ask these questions at every meeting we go to, just to understand who we're talking to, and as we go through the process, who we've missed, so that we make sure that we tailor our outreach activities to those that might not have had an opportunity to contribute, and kind of continue that iterative process that we move through the series of meetings. So it looks like you all are getting a hang of this, which is great. It will give this another 10 seconds as well. Thank you all again for jumping right into this. Okay. Much more diverse tonight than we've seen in previous meetings, which is great in terms of age. Excellent. And all these results, by the way, you can continue to take the survey. We'll make sure we post these after the meeting as well. Next is race and ethnicity. And here you could select as many as applies to you. So this will be great to kind of get a quick sense of as well. Who's here with us tonight? Excellent. You guys are jumping all over this. This is great.
Dave, I'm going to interrupt you. Is this meeting limited to 100 people?
That's a great question. It shouldn't be, but if people are having trouble getting in, it might be.
I think that is the case.
Okay. I'm not sure what to do about that now.
I've been in this situation before. It is possible to pay them now to let more people in.
Okay, that will mean pausing it.
I don't think we have to get everybody out and back in again. I think it's possible to change the meeting from the back end.
Okay,
And Bobby says you can adjust number of attendees in your meeting sessions. So
Right,
Paul,
no.
can you look into that?
Yeah,
We
he
do
can't.
wanna
That's the
make
issue.
sure that-
It's under the account that we're in right now. But Paul, I'll follow up with you on that shortly after we take this survey, and we'll make that happen. This is, as Kristen said, what a fantastic problem to have more than 100 people that want to join the meeting. Okay, we're coming down the final stretch here. Do you rent or own? Great to get this information from you all as well. Excellent. And again, we'll post all this information after the meeting as well, but great to get a quick sense of who's in the room with us. Annual household income, again, another question that we typically ask as part of kind of gathering basic demographics. So thank you again for taking the time to give us your input here. And we only have a couple more questions and then we'll launch into the presentation. Most importantly, on we go to the next question. So this, we want to kind of get a sense of why people are joining us, whether you live here, whether you work in Petaluma, whether you might own a business or property in Petaluma. You might just want to get a better idea of the visioning process and or the entire general plan process. So you can answer as many of these as apply to you. So thank you for so quickly doing that. This is awesome. And again, looks like we have an extremely diverse mix of folks with us here today, which is really great to see. And then lastly, wow, fantastic. Okay, lastly, I'm gonna ask just this final question, recognizing that this is focused on the southwest quadrant. We just kind of wanna get a sense of where in the city, for those that do live here, quite a few do, where you live. And that'll kind of give us a sense of it as well of who's joining us here tonight. Excellent. As expected, looks like the majority of folks actually live in the southwest area. Excellent. Okay, so with that, I am going to stop sharing. Thank you again for taking that with us. Great to see that information. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for 1 second and then bring back up the presentation and hand it over to Ron to get us started. So,
Hey, Dave,
yes.
I really want to respect that people are trying to get in. So can we just pause
Yes.
for a minute and try to resolve that before we keep going?
Sure. It might not be a quick thing though, because I'll need to kind of get, I was going to do it as Ron is kind of starting the background presentation, but if you'd like to fully pause, we can do that too. Is that what you want to do?
Let's give it 2 minutes, because I know that some folks are here who haven't been here before.
Okay. All right. If you all could stay patient with us here, let's see what we can do. Yeah, Christina, it's taken a second to get through it all, so I suggest we carry forward. And I'll take care of it in the background while it's happening.
Okay, are you seeing that folks are putting instructions in the chat?
Yeah, it's not that. I need to kind of get it all set up, though. It's not, unfortunately, it's not happening as a click of a button right now. So it'll happen, but it's just going to take me like 3 or 4 minutes. I just don't want to hold everyone up.
Okay, Ron, what's at the beginning of the presentation? I'm not remembering just off the top of my head.
So it's pretty high level introduction to what a general plan is about, and then an overview of the Petaluma general plan update process.
So if it's just going to be 3 or 4 minutes, my recommendation is we wait and then we just go slightly over the 8 o'clock to recoup the time that this is taking. If people will bear with us, just so that people have the benefit of, I think the background is really important, especially not having an idea. People that are waiting were here earlier in another session or not. So if people will bear with us, I think that would be the best idea.
All right. Ron, do you know any songs?
If
And I
I
was
did,
kind of
you
feeling
wouldn't
like
want to
we
hear them
needed
from me.
We needed a comedy routine or something.
Right. I do appreciate everybody chiming in the chat. Lots of useful comments. Appreciate the votes for giving people an opportunity to get in before we continue.
Sorry, team. So the tricky thing is it does show that I have the 500 plan. So that's why it's taking me a little bit longer. It's not a simple click of the button. I'm not sure why it's not working. So I appreciate all the feedback folks are giving in chat, but it appears to be a glitch that I need to just look into.
All right. Our very clever Gina Berenetti Peknik from the city is suggesting that while folks are waiting, you can go and check out the City of Petaluma General Plan website. I'm going to put the link to it in the chat. It is also pretty easy to type in just at planpetaluma.org. You can go check that out. There's an overarching schedule on the homepage if you scroll down, and then quite a few materials that you can go through. All right. Taryn is also wondering, I'll just share that really quick and then we can talk about the pop-up schedule. So here's our website, and event details are here so that folks can really easily find details to this kind of event. But just looking at the general plan website, we have a bunch of maps here if you want to dive into some of our data visualized, some of the content that Ron's going to be going through about what we're doing, what this project is, what a general plan is, high level schedule, and then a more detailed schedule of when events are happening. In terms of, and obviously you can see it's a quarterly schedule. If you are interested in doing, coming to this kind of event, we are posting that information here. And then we're also working on populating this calendar. This is a new feature for our website. We're also holding pop-ups. So on Saturday, there was a pop-up at the Walnut Farmers Market, and then we're going to be having another one tomorrow at the East Side Farmers Market. And then Ron, can you share with folks when the others are? And I just want to note the reason that we haven't posted these pop-ups is that there's a lot of the same content that we're going through in these meetings. So the intention is to be grabbing the folks who just walk by, who might not otherwise be able to come to this kind of event and engage them in the general plan process. But Ron can tell folks when those are, and you're welcome to drop by, of course. Ron, do you have that handy? It looks like he's looking into the many Google Sheets that we have to keep track of this.
Yeah. I know one is coming up the next Saturday. Am I muted?
No, you're good.
Saturday, the 11th, and then in addition to the one tomorrow night, there's at least one more in the meantime. And I'm looking for the date of that one.
On the 9th. Yeah, September 9th.
My fingertips. The reason we don't actually post the dates is because they're designed to meet people where they are. And so they're not necessarily designed for people to go out of their way to attend, but they're designed to be where people already congregate and attend events, or in this case, some farmers markets. And there'll be several others that are in the process of being scheduled. And again, as Christina mentioned, a bunch of the same sorts of questions and feedback, more citywide in orientation, but less and less area specific. But similar questions about what people would like to see for the city, areas where they'd like specific changes, same demographic sort of questions, and basic information about the project.
Yeah, we're going to be doing we needed to book the farmers market ahead of time, but we're going to be doing some less formal pop-ups at markets and, some Spanish language focused pop-ups as well. I saw for a second 101 people, so it seems like maybe our issue is beginning to be resolved. Dave, do you want to give us an update on how everything's going?
Yeah, again, it shows that I have 500, the license for 500 folks, both for a webinar and for a meeting, and I just re-upped it again, so fingers crossed. Not totally sure what to say at this point, but it does look like
it seems like people are coming in.
great. Hopefully,
Awesome.
hopefully they stay in. All right, cool.
All right, my dog and pony show is over for now. Ron, take it away.
Should we give people who have been trying to get in just a minute to log in?
Great idea.
And yeah, you were right about the Thursday, September 9th session in the evening at the Petaluma Evening Market. The other pop-up schedule, but again, more are coming.
Okay,
Hey,
over to you, Ron.
well, thank you, Dave and Paul, for resolving that issue. Really very much appreciate everyone's patience as we got that taken care of. And thank you again, Dave and Christina and Gustavo, for the opening session here and for getting us started. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Lovely to see such a large group tonight. Thank you very much for your interest in Petaluma and in the General Plan Update project. Again, I'm Ron Whitmore. I'm a principal with Ramey & Associates and the consultant team's project manager for the General Plan Update. Because this may be the first project activity that many of you have participated in, we did want to provide some high-level background information. We know that some of you have participated in previous general plan meetings or may be familiar with the project. We appreciate your patience as we provide this high-level overview. Likewise, we have received a request from the interpreters to slow down a bit. And so while I'm tempted to speed through this, I'm going to try to keep my pace moderated so that the folks who are participating in Spanish are able to keep up. So quickly, purpose of a general plan. The state law requires that each local government have a general plan. General plan describes a community's vision and establishes policies that guide future local decision-making. Some of the general plan's most important policies inform future land use, development, and related regulation. A general plan also identifies programs to implement that policy. General plans are long-term and very comprehensive. They usually have a 20 to 30-year time horizon and can address most community priorities. They do have 8 required elements, all of which have unique requirements in state law. Over time, a general plan impacts residents' day-to-day life in a number of ways, including the preservation of open space, housing, roadway and path improvements, parks, and economic development, to name a few. Because they have such a long time horizon, general plans are only updated periodically. They're therefore a unique opportunity to bring the community together like we are tonight, to hold a community conversation about priorities and strategies, and collaboratively create a path forward. Not only will Petaluma's general plan update address critical issues, but it will do so in a holistic way that focus on strategies that are synergistic, that accomplish several goals at the same time. In addition, the updated general plan will integrate with other city plans and with its regulatory system and decision-making processes. Next slide, please. So what does the general plan update process look like for Petaluma? First of all, the project is more than just a general plan update. It also includes a climate action and adaptation plan that builds on the city's climate emergency framework. They are being done in tandem to ensure that they are complementary and consistent. Importantly, the planning process also builds on recent city planning, including the ULI Technical Assistance Panel report and the recently completed local hazard mitigation plan. And it's also being done in coordination with several ongoing planning projects like the VMT thresholds and the bike and pedestrian master plan. The project also includes an EIR as required by law. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Dave. The general plan update is uniquely comprehensive, including the 8 required elements. The updated general plan will address many local priorities like environmental protection, housing, transportation, parks, climate change, and hazard mitigation. Dave, are you able to advance the slide? Thank you. I need to stress, however, that general plans are primarily policy documents. They cannot address all of the city's challenges, and they require follow-up action to be effective. For example, the general plan can identify the need for a parks master plan, but it will not include that plan. The general plan will be designed for easy implementation, but it will take years of follow-up activity to implement. This is a multi-year project. Next slide, please. And we're just getting started. During the next slide, please, Dave. Well, Dave is advancing to that next slide. There's 5 or 6 general phases of the project. The first substantive phase is the discovery phase. The planning team has been in this phase since the launch of the project and has been preparing a variety of background reports for all of the general plan topics. You have a chance, Dave, if you could advance the slide. With these area meetings, we're now launching the next phase, the visioning phase, which will conclude with the city council adopting the general plan vision and guiding principles. This initial public input will also inform the phase that follows visioning, which is the alternatives phase. I think we're on slide 19. 19, please. Yeah, so then the next slide I was discussing was the alternatives phase, which will conclude with the city council adopting a land use policy map to guide the city's future development. We'll then build on those first 3 phases, discovery, visioning, and alternatives, to complete a policy framework for the general plan, which will be the foundation for the final product. General plan updates, next slide please, are a lot of work. This slide gives you a sampling of some of the major work products. Importantly, the city's policymaking body, the city council, approves each major interim policy product and will adopt the final updated general slide. The power of the update is not just the final product, but also the process of bringing the community together. General plan is effective to the extent that it reflects representative community input. Again, why Dave asked the demographic questions tonight and why we do that consistently throughout the process. City staff provide expertise specific to the city, its operations, and its plans. The consultant team, in turn, brings a broad range of expertise in planning, engineering, economics, housing, and many other topics. But it's only you, the public, who can provide place-based local knowledge. Therefore, public outreach and engagement is a major focus of this project. At each phase, you and your neighbors will have a variety of opportunities to shape the plan. We're just getting started. We'll have another round of area meetings during the next phase to discuss specific options for the future of this southwest part of town. Other opportunities to learn and provide input will include surveys, workshops, and forums. There's also a general plan advisory committee. I see several GPAC members here tonight. Thank you for joining us. And the GPAC advises the planning team on an ongoing basis through its regular meetings that are open to the public. For more detailed information, again, as we've covered, please go to the project website, planpetaluma.org. The general plan update is not starting from scratch. Christina is now going to give you a sense of some of the work that the city has been doing and what it has already been hearing from the public and communities across the city. We share this because we thought it'd be a useful way to give you a sense of the topics and the types of change people have identified to grease the wheels for the small group discussion that follows. Christina?
Yes, thanks, Ron. So one of the overarching reasons that we are doing the general plan is that the community has really been bringing forward quite a few issues and topics of focus that were either not really covered in the last general plan or where our current conditions have changed really significantly. And so this is an opportunity for us to do a fairly holistic policy reset to look into all of these issues in a lot of detail. One of the most important milestones in this process of gathering community feedback for what folks want to see in the future of Petaluma has been the effort to establish the city council goals and priorities. That started in 2019 with an extensive community visioning effort and has since been updated a couple of times so that the city and city staff can think about how to react to and implement the policies coming out of that effort. In December of 2020, leading up to our issuing a call for consultants to come on board and help us with this general plan effort, we did a public survey of anybody in Petaluma who was willing to respond. We also visited quite a few committees and commissions to get feedback on what they suggested were the most important topics for us to address in the general plan, and then put that into our request for proposals for consultants. Since then, we've done listening sessions with the city council members and with GPAC. We've been holding GPAC meetings, which are always open to the public, and we are also offering simultaneous interpretation at each of those meetings to make them as accessible as possible. The city has also recently adopted a climate emergency framework and has been convening an ad hoc committee focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And all of this information is going to be funneled into the general plan and the various chapters or elements of the general plan. Next slide, please. So several of the priorities that have come out of all of this couple of years worth of work are listed here. I'm not going to read them all to you. But what's really interesting is that some of these are really coming out of public conversation, and again, weren't covered in detail by the existing general plan. So that's why we felt that it would be a great idea to update it. We are, of course, looking at all of the policies in the existing general plan and thinking about whether or not they should be carried forward, because there are quite a few innovative policies and policy directions in that plan, as well as some more detailed plans that we have in town, like the River Master Plan, the Bike and Ped Master Plan, and those kinds of things. Next slide, please. So the next few slides that I'm going to be going through are going to show on a map are the results that we got from the survey that we did in December of 2020. Of course, there's still plenty of time to give feedback onto these topics, but it's interesting to see what people's initial read was on each of these issues. When we asked folks where they wanted to see more housing, what you'll see is the more responses that people gave to a particular area of the map, the brighter red it will be. So you can see these clouds kind of and then coalescing around the Turning Basin area. There's also a little spot off to the left or along the edge of town, not by the proposed Corona Road Station, but down south of that. We're not really sure why so many people seem to have clicked there. That's kind of an outlier, but you'll see that coming up in a few of these. Next slide, please. When we asked folks where they wanted to see more street life, we saw a lot around downtown, Petaluma Boulevard, the fairgrounds, and a couple of the other major arterials, also really notably around the upcoming Corona Road Station. Next slide, please. We asked folks where they wanted to see safer streets, because in addition to land uses or the kinds of buildings, the kinds of activities that we have on any given piece of land, folks identified, you can see the Washington corridor lit up here, downtown, a lot of areas around Midtown, Petaluma Boulevard, McDowell, and there's the Corona Road overcrossing there that's lighting up as well. So these are areas that we're going to be looking into as part of the general plan process, and also part of the city's ongoing bike and ped plan update process, to look at, what are the issues here? How can we help to mitigate these as part of the general plan? Next slide, please. Better access to transit. We really saw the smart stations, the 2 smart stations, including the existing downtown station and the upcoming Corona Road station, really light up here, as well as key nodes throughout the city and then downtown as well. Next slide, please. New parks. People are really interested in the McNair Peninsula, Turning Basin, and then a couple of other nodes. There's one around the fairgrounds, and then one along the river, a couple of little clouds along the river that you can see, where people are interested in having access to outdoor space. Next slide, please. All right.
Thank you, Christina. Yeah, so thank you, Christina. We wanted to share that high-level city overview of some of what we've heard so far when asking people at a citywide scale what they'd like to see for Petaluma. As a segue to the focus tonight, which is to get a very area-specific set of perspectives from folks who live and work in particular parts of town. Very important that we hear directly from people who know places very well, get their input in a focused way on particular parts of town, what changes are anticipated, what they'd like to keep the same, what types of improvements they would like to see. Hence the purpose for these meetings. So next slide. Again, as Dave mentioned, this is the 3rd of 4. There'll be one more Wednesday this week. Same process and focus, just different geographic part of town. Dave, back to you to introduce the breakout sessions and get us into the substance of tonight's session.
Hey, all, can you hear me okay? Yes? All right, great. Having all kinds of interesting technical issues as we up my Zoom apparently. But so the next step in the process here, Paul, if you can move us forward to the next slide. So as we mentioned earlier, the most important part of this meeting is to hear from you all. So we're going to now break up into 3 groups. And in those groups, we really want to dive deeply into the assets and issues of each one of these areas. And as I mentioned earlier, really kind of diving in to identify specific locations in the area where you might want to see some change and or you think should generally stay the same. And when we think about change, we think possibly a mix of housing, of different shopping opportunities, jobs, or anything else you think that might kind of be a benefit for the area. And then also we'll talk about improvement. So is there transportation issues currently in the area that should be improved to give access to all different modes of transportation, possibly? Is there additional parks or other type of civic uses that you'd like to see? And then once we get through that conversation, we're going to come back together here in the main room and we're going to do a report out. So we're going to get a quick snapshot of what each group talked about. And then we'll talk a little bit about next steps and send you on your way. So with that, the one question I do want to ask, if there are any members of the public that are following along in Spanish, I wanted to ask if you want to use the raise hand feature. That'll let us know that you want to actually stay in this main room with Gustavo as the interpreter. But if for some reason you do get moved to a room, just simply leave that room and you end up right back here and you'll have access to Gustavo and his great interpreting in Spanish. Unfortunately, I don't have access to my participant window right now, so I'm going to ask the team if you all see any, and then Paul, if you want to make sure that those folks stay in this room. And if there aren't any, the next step here is to go ahead and click the button and send you all on your way so that we can start the conversation.
Dave, I don't see any hands raised right this moment.
Excellent. Thank you for checking. So Paul, if you can please go ahead and stop sharing screen first. and then click the magic button, and you all will be sent into your different rooms, and we'll see you back here shortly. Have fun.